Public participation will influence the outcome of the Deputy President's impeachment process. And our handles are on your screen right there on Facebook and X. That is at K24 TV. You can use the same handle, and our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. Now, I have a couple of your responses, and I'm looking at Facebook here. We have Victor Mayogi saying the same energy and resources used on impeachment should be used on all finance bills. Simi Mona says, let them do their wish, they will get their response. Zaki Boy says, this was the best public participation, Gachagua must go. And Martin Okwomi says, the message is clearly written, Gachagua to vacate. Sonia Karanja says she basically does not, take this a lot into mind. She doesn't care about it. Michael Kuria Mbogo says, it has already been decided, so will have little effect. Well, there you go. Those are a couple of your responses. I'll do my best to read a bit more, towards the end of this conversation. But Nora, you were speaking about the whole perspective of the IEBC, which has been in conversation for a while now. We're in the last quarter of the year, right? And yes. Now that we have this impeachment motion there, there's a lot to be considered in case it does go through. Mm-hmm. And the whole aspect of IEBC, that it being unconstituted is mm-hmm. really a problem already.
Sure. So of course, IEBC has to be formed, but then of course I don't know where the delays are coming from. And then of course we know that once the DP has been impeached, and the president then nominates another name, at the end of the day, IEBC has a role to play. But then, without it being constituted, what happens next? Will there be a vacuum? How do we then explain to Kenyans what happens next? Do we just let it slide and then we see what the courts decide on the matter? So then, of course, like you said, I don't think these people have taken into consideration what could happen after. I think this was just a struggle for power where everybody was trying to, outbox each other and see who's mightier. But then at the end of the day, we have a lot we are grappling with in terms of the rule of law and our jurisprudence and our constitution. I don't know whether they're going to violate the constitution and nominate a deputy president who will then just take over the processes just normally without going through the IEBC process. But of course, like we were talking about public participation, even before we go to the whole bid that he has now been ousted out of power, and then we are looking at what next. We have to look at the merits of this impeachment. Do they warrant all these grounds? Do they really warrant the ouster of a deputy president? And then, of course, having seen that the members of parliament who are adamant to let him go are the same people running this process, which, of course, violates so many rules within our constitution, including conflict of interest and bias. And of course, we saw what happened in Bomas. And the law, of course, stipulates that anything that happens in this regard should ensure that there's inclusive and effective representation. So then that calls the question of, was there a conducive and peaceful side for this kind of exercise to take place? We saw Morra being hounded out and our members of parliament, instigating and making sure that he was beaten properly. Actually, he was swollen. Did you see him yesterday? Mm-hmm. He was swollen all over. And in fact, what we saw on our television was very minute. Actually, what happened outside is more grim, because outside of Bomas, there were goons who had been put in specific places, and they still continued to beat him mercilessly. It's actually the GSU people who were outside that helped him be able to escape this calamity. So then this also then takes us back to our pertinent question, that were divergent views also listened to, or people were only supposed to then just flow with the impeachment process and then agree to it and then give on with their forms and go home? Because it's very sad, Remy, what we saw from bombers, you know, mothers, fathers, parents, clearly, just, you know, kind of, you know, just calling upon fellow youth to attack each other. It's very grim. It's a bad show of what our leaders can do when they're in power. And, you know, people were saying that these are goons. Remy, I can tell you for sure that these are not goons. These are our brothers and sisters who have just been weaponized. Do you know that we have really weaponized poverty? Remy, do you know that in the ghetto, in the informal settlements, getting 20 shillings a day is a problem. Getting even 50 shillings in a day is a huge problem. You know, so therefore, we have kind of weaponized poverty where political leaders abuse, misuse, and manipulate our youth to be able to fulfill their agenda. Because we saw that most of our people were ferried from the ghetto to come and beat each other. You saw a woman, a mother saying, pigger, pigger, pigger. You know, kind of calling the youth to beat Morra Kebaso. It's so shameful, and we have to call them out. Shame on you. Shame on you, all the MPs that were in bombers. Shameful. It's so shameful, and I don't know even how we are going to elect these people back to office, especially because, you know, wametuzoea. You know, yeah, because at the end of the day, again, it's us who vote them back. So I wonder if we are also normal, Remy, that after witnessing this kind of chaos, witnessing somebody, an MP, you know, instructing people to pigger another person, and then saying, you know, iyo ndio utamu ya Nairobi, is really shameful. So
right. You know, one of the perspectives here is some members of parliament were actually saying that this was before the public participation happened, while the speaker was, you know, giving direction on how it should be going. Now, before that, some members of parliament were saying that they believe this is just a process that needs to be done. I believe according to Article 118 of the Constitution, it's just supposed to be, you know, a process so that you tick the boxes. Now, when we have also members of parliament, you know, decrying or saying that this process has no outcome whatsoever, like in what you're saying in this motion, then how is the public supposed to be confident in a process that is, you know, underlined in the Constitution, but at the same time, you know, we're supposed to feel like we participated, but then not really, you know, is it really going to be effective if members of parliament can say that?
You know, there's the qualitative and the quantitative nature of this public participation. And of course, the public do not trust our institutions, because over time we've seen that the holders in contempt, they don't care for the common mwananchi. For them, it's about power and what they agree amongst themselves. They've forgotten that we have actually sent them to parliament to legislate and oversight. And of course, with the finance bill and what has been happening over time, the people do not have trust in institutions. And of course, together with MPs, both in the lower and upper house. So then, of course, I think this public participation was just, you know, a public relations exercise, which was choreographed to kind of fit a specific agenda. Because at the end of the day, quantitatively, does it even pass the test? Because you saw that most of the papers were just photocopies. They lacked any security features. How are we going to tell that for sure this is exactly what has come from the constituency level? Because especially because the people who are involved are the people who signed the ouster. How sure are we that there's no interference whatsoever, and that whatever is going to be passed to the National Assembly is what the aspirations of the people are? And of course, you realize that we do not have an impartial arbiter. The Deputy Speaker and the Speaker of the National Assembly already pronounced themselves in this matter. They were waiting, so ready to be able to bring this motion to fruition so that they can let this person go. So having an impartial arbiter then at the National Assembly, does it give Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua a fair hearing? So at the end of the day, I think this is betrayal.
So there's this aspect where some would say the president's voice is not in this. We're not hearing him, give his side of the perspective, or let me say, defend the deputy president, as the deputy president has always said. He said he'd, never let me be in this position just the way he was in this position, when he was in the other, administration, right? But like you're saying, other analysts would say there's an underlining tone where you can say the president is speaking. Do you think that is the case?
The president's silence is deafening. And philosophers always say that neutrality is actually siding with the oppressor. Silence is siding with the oppressor. So that means then that in all these shenanigans, whoever is not voicing their concerns and opinions and views means that they already know to what end they want this thing to proceed to. So therefore, of course, we are adults, and I'm sure even with basic education, I'm sure that we are able to see what is actually happening behind the curtains. But of course, at the end of the day, I don't even blame the president himself, because we have elected people who we thought are going to fight for common mwananchi and represent us fairly. So if these people are going to be used, as lapdogs, if they're going to abdicate on their responsibilities, then it means that we have to reflect on the people we send to parliament. Because already we have seen that our MPs are leading in hooliganism and goonism, that people who have raised children, their parents, to adults and other young people are actually the one who are, kind of calling upon the youth to attack each other, of course reflects on our common aspirations of a nation.
All right. You had mentioned earlier about being a student of history when you're speaking about the DP's predicament. And one of the things that is heavy in this whole perspective is history. Like I mentioned, we've had the president, who was the deputy president last administration, facing this with the president then, and now we have this same scenario. The only difference here is the president wasn't impeached during that time. And then also during that time we had power brokers, we had the handshake, now we have the broad-based government, in question, and now we have new power players. We have Raila Odinga now, campaigning to be AU chairman, right?
Yeah.
So of course that got into government, this administration rather, some new faces who are not, part of the government. And you had said that that also you had said that the deputy president was pushed out because he doesn't have that much pull when it comes to power, right? So if we look at history like a present day, what are we supposed to get from all this, despite one being historical and one being, an escalation, if I may say?
As a good student of history, I can tell you for sure that politics is a never-ending game, and the game never changes. So this means that you have to look, historically what has been happening to be able to, kind of, when you are making those power moves, you have to be very particular. There's no chance to anybody who doesn't understand political strategy. So like I said, that what is bedeviling our deputy president is he's a novice in this power play, and therefore I think he should be guided. He should be guided. He should surround himself with people who understand, the corridors of power.
Just in case he survives this, let's say now he survived this. It's only 2 years into this, rule or administration. What time does he have to be guided, and how will his tenure look like afterwards? How will the president be with his deputy or manage this country with his deputy? Are we also going to see dynamics where there's a lot of disconnect? I mean, the deputy president had said, like when you came here 2 Fridays ago, in a press briefing, that there was no communication whatsoever. Even the WhatsApp group that he was in is out. So
yes.
how are they managing? You know,
if the deputy president is able to maneuver through this, then it means that he has won. He has won, and against so many hurdles. This is going to embolden him. This is going to make him now a kingpin. This is a kingpin in the making. We are actually, the deputy president actually was having it difficult to consolidate power from his backyard. There were people who were like, no, stop with this bullshit of, I don't know, you want to galvanize the Mount Kenya region. You are a national leader, even from his backyard. But, with these persecutions, then it has come to the fore that at the end of the day, there is underhand dealings, that there is a bigger issue that we are not being told. So that means then if he manages to maneuver through this process, he is going to be very powerful, very powerful. He would have, kind of crossed the Rubicon, the proverbial Rubicon River. Yes. So that means then that he will have now political power, which he was struggling to kind of galvanize. And of course now he can be heard authoritatively that, what, I am a warrior. I came through unscathed, and that I can do whatever I want to do. But of course now this then takes us to another perspective whereby now he might change. He might change maybe for the good and for the betterment of the nation, or he might just be brutal. Because at the end of the day, once you've been stabbed in the back, Remy, you don't come out as a normal person. It's just like Morra. Morra has been baptized officially into the political happenings of Nairobi. That in Nairobi, you have to be beaten properly. Sulisikia siasa tamu ya Nairobi ni hooliganism and goonism. So that means then when they come out of this situation altogether, things might change, but then it's going to be better for the DP, because then he will be able to consolidate Mount Kenya.
All right. Now, as we wind up, we've come to the end, Morra. What would you, have your final thoughts be on this whole matter, especially looking at the aspect of the Constitution? What are we supposed to be looking at here legally, because of so many scenarios happening at the same time?
So I think even if the impeachment goes through the Senate, I think the courts will be able to give him a fair hearing, because we've seen that there's a lot of loopholes in the public participation that was carried out, and therefore we are looking to our judiciary, which is actually the guardrails of our Constitution, to be able to give us a fair hearing. But altogether, Remy, I would just like to urge our members of parliament not to use impeachment as a tool for partisan fights. It's very unfair for the people of Kenya, and it doesn't augur well in the spirit and letter of the Constitution.
I see. Right. And Nora, thank you so much for coming in today and helping us have some understanding towards this particular matter. And she's been our guest, Nora Bosibori. She's a policy analyst. And like I mentioned, we have been speaking about, DP Gachagua being on the brink of all this. We had public participation that was there on Friday, this past Friday and Saturday. Now we are waiting, of course, him to defend himself tomorrow. And we will see how that goes. We'll analyze that for you and have it in our subsequent bulletins. For now, let me just wind up by reading a few of your responses. We have Kira Shadrack here saying absolutely no. And Zaki Boy says, we other Kenyans want a DP. And Raven Rave says it's a conflict of interest, but since they were elected on the same ticket, if possible, both should go home. Thus the phrase kufa dereva kufa makanga. Thank you so much for watching Morning Vibe. My name is Remmy Majala. We'll see you again tomorrow.
It's a Saturday.